Hi, in this week's Parsha, Parshat Ki Tisa, we're asked to raise up our heads, literally, to help raise up our consciousness, our vibration. And the Parsha is an extremely in-depth uh, analysis of actually what happens because the first Aliyah is extremely euphoric. The people are on a very high level. It still discusses the Mishkan, the creation of the Mishkan, the oil, the incense, etc. And then in the second Aliyah, in the second reading, we read about the fallout that the people have, that they literally uh, their crowns are taken off their heads. The crowns that they received on Mount Sinai are taken off, and they have now stooped down to the lowest level after the sin of the golden calf. They made a foreign god. They made a god that was made in their image. And the continuation of the Parsha really goes along with Moshe atoning for the people and trying to find grace and favor in Hebrew, chen, in the eyes of God to atone for the people. And then finally, God atones for the people, but there's always a little bit of that sin that remains. And the end of the Parsha talks about the holidays, and it ends off with Moshe going into a certain isolation, in a sense, where whoever wanted to seek out God did not find God in necessarily uh, in in the Mishkan, did not find them in any holy place. If they really wanted God, they had to search out the tzaddik, the leader, and by their connecting and realigning oneself. So what's going on in the depth of this parsha? How can we take that into our lives? How could this be a deeper message for us in the current events and the times that we are in right now? So we know that every single parsha is connected to the times of the week and the energy of the week. And that's true every single year. So the Parsha starts off with giving the half a shekel coin, the ability for us to raise up our vibration, to raise up our consciousness comes via the recognition that we are only a half. And the Maggid of Mezrich tells us that this concept of the half shekel is something that's repeated throughout the Torah. For example, that there is the chatzotzot, which literally are the trumpets. They're called chatzitzurot, that a person should recognize that he or she is just a half, but the other half is the divine, is God. And what we do and our sense of perfection that we will never attain on our own, and the fear that we feel as a result of that, or a feeling of lack and a feeling of unworthiness that we feel because we're, quote, not perfect or we're not good enough. We have accomplished things as well as we expect ourselves or other people's expectations of ourselves. That will never happen on our own fragile half. When we recognize that we are only a half and God, Hashem, is the other half, is our partner, is the one that is actually fulfilling us, meaning that I can never be a full. I'm always just a half. That's a very redemptive feeling. That's a very freeing feeling that I don't need to be full. God does not want me to think that. And the way for me to access my higher self is by that recognition that I am a half, that I am just a receptacle for God's greatest goodness that he seeks, that he yearns to come to bestow upon me. As Kabbalah teaches, that when we are able to recognize that we are recipients, Kabbalah literally means to receive, but recipients for the sake of now taking the divine and taking the divine within my own fragile self, and then utilizing that every part of myself in the world, in my world, in the world around me, then I am now receiving for the sake of giving. And that receiving is now a half me, who's the receiver, and God is the giver. And the two of us come together, and we are now accomplishing the task that God has ordained my soul, myself, to do in this world, and moment to moment, in every single day and every single opportunity, choice that I have. So the Torah tells us, Ki Tisa et rosh b'nei Israel. Now it says something very unique in the language of it. Lifkudehem. Lifkudehem literally means they're counting. So in order to get the census, the amount of how many of the Israelites were there, they had to give a half a shekel coin, and that then determined how many were actually there. But Bekudehem, the Alter Rebbe points out, actually comes from the word lifkod, means that there is a detriment, that there is a lack. So, how does this concept of being counted and having the lack go hand in hand? So it connects to exactly the concept of the half a shekel coin. We may think that my lack is something that puts me in a detriment because I'm born in this way, because I don't have the ability to be good at everything, because I may not excel in a certain way. And I may think that my lack now means that there's something wrong with me. But it's the opposite. God says, I count you, ki tisat rosh b'nei Israel lifkudehem, in accordance to their lack. God is like, I know your lack. I created you in that way, but I created you in order to also recognize that you can turn to me, that you can be fulfilled by me, by only me. And the Parsha continues with this lesson that the people are looking for other fulfillments, just being human beings. And the whole sin of the golden calf is a sin of fulfillment, that the physicality, that the self is yearning for, that wants, that they want the golden calf. And according to Kabbalah, the sin of the golden calf was a reenactment of the sin of paradise, the sin of the tree of knowledge of good and bad, where there was this otherness that the people were searching for. And they weren't just looking for the tree of life. They weren't just looking for what was there in the garden. God is telling them, you don't have to search for other things. You could search for me to fulfill you instead of going to other coping mechanisms to be filled up from outside of ourselves. That if it's either food, entertainment, physical delight and pleasure, or anything that just takes our attention really away from our inner world, which is really God's world that we are meant to go and seek out. So the sin of the golden calf was that in reenactment of the sin of the tree of knowledge of good and bad. And the people are there and they're like, where's Moshe? Moshe is the person, he's supposed to help us out. He's supposed to do the work for us. And Moshe ends up coming back a day late. And the Erev Rav, who are this external uh, people that are not really part of the Jewish people. They're not really part of the Israelites that came out of Egypt with the inner intention of being redeemed and looking for redemption and looking at God and looking at their inner world for redemption. They were looking at outer. They were looking at miracles were done, and we like that. We want to be a part of that. And that was the Erev Rav. And their Erev Rav were stirring things up for the people. And they were like, oh, you know what's going on? Moshe is not showing up. And the people got dissuaded. And Aaron goes ahead and he's like, let's take all this gold and we're going to throw into the fire. And what came out? This golden calf. And the golden calf, a para aduma. It was this red heifer that actually we read about this week. We also have the reading, an extra reading of Parshat Para, which is the red heifer, which is the cleansing of the red calf, of the golden calf. And the people are like, wow, it's a God. It's something outside of me that I can now worship. And this is something that in our world, in the Western world, is so known that we know that we look for stars, we look for influencers, we look for athletes, we look for politicians, we look for wealthy people, very rich people, that they are like the star, they are like my gods. And we're making God in man's image. And that's exactly what happened. The golden calf was a God made in man's image. And that included even Moshe. They wanted Moshe to come down and just like do the work for them. And Moshe shows up and he comes back, and it's a day after the people thought that they were gonna do this, and he was gonna come back. And Moshe comes back, and God tells him, th- "You're up here on Mount Sinai. People are waiting for you." And what was Moshe doing? He was bringing down the luchot. He was bringing down the tablets to the people. And God says, you know what? We've got to break these. We got to start over again. And what was the difference between the first tablets and the second tablets? The first tablets were written in Be'etzbe Elokim. They were written with God's holiness, God's sanctity. And the words were going through and through the actual stone itself. And there was just this innate holiness that was there, that our sages tell us that had the people received the first tablets, they would have known everything that there is to know. They wouldn't have needed anything else. They wouldn't have needed any other books, any other forms of knowledge, any teachers or anything else. They would be able to just have this spiritual download, and they would just know everything, right? So that sounds amazing, doesn't it? Sounds great. But the thing is that the people were not ready for it yet. They weren't ready to have this complete absolving of self. They weren't on that level to just be connected to that infinite other half of the shekel, basically, that other half, that godly half that was just ready to download information into the half of the people. The people weren't ready for that. And the second tablets had to be given. And the second tablets now had the work of the people. The people had to do this inner work of refinement of self, that now they had to now work on themselves from what is called below to above. The first tablets were above to below, the second were below to above. And we know that the second tablets were given when? On Yom Kippur. On Yom Kippur, the second tablets were given, and that signifies that the people returned, did teshuvah. What did they do teshuvah for? How did they do teshuvah? What was this process of teshuvah? So first Moshe comes along and he prays for the people, and he brings down the 13 attributes of mercy, which are found in our Parsha. Moshe basically says, like, God, if you want to destroy them, then I don't want to be here. Take me out of here as well. And Moshe really petitions, and he causes the people, and he awakens within the people this tshuva. And he says, basically, it's not going to be me. Don't look at me. The people, don't look at me to get you out of this. You guys have to do the work. And that is really at the core, the essence of tshuva. The essence of tshuva is that when we return back to our fragile and vulnerable selves, essentially. That's what teshuvah is. Teshuvah isn't returning to this robust, strong, powerful, right? That comes afterwards. That comes after the first stage of coming forth and recognize that we are imperfect. That recognition, once again, of that of our imperfection, that acceptance of our imperfection is now a conduit that allows us to now have God's grace, which we find that word over and over in the Parsha, chen, the word grace. The word grace is a very powerful word, chen, because chen doesn't mean like, oh, this person is just either good looking or beautiful or charismatic or whatever it is. There's a certain grace about the person. Why? Because the person is through and through and they're real. And that that truth that they're actually exuding, that is coming from within them, now brings out pain, brings out grace. And we find that by Rachel, we find that by Esther, by the story of Purim, we find that by Yosef, that they were individuals that went through and through, and their truth was able to permeate their half a coin, their body, their self, their vulnerable self. And so this transformation that we're learning about in the Parsha is really this transformation that we are coming back to that whole coin, that fullness of the coin, that whole coin, by coming to teshuvah and by recognizing that the truth isn't outside of me. It's not in the news, it's not in the entertainment, it's not in the stars, it's not in the all of these incredible um, uh, athletes or movie stars, money makers, powerful people, politicians for sure not, but thinking that the truth and giving away the truth to someplace outside of me is exactly not the method to do that. That's the sin of the golden calf. That's the sin of the tree of good and evil, the tree of Eitz Hadat, where we are now dividing our da'at. We're taking our da'at and we're saying that there's something outside of me, whereas the da'at, the inner da'at, is the inner knowing, the true inner knowing is an internal knowing. And that's what happens at the end of the Parsha. We're told that Moshe now leaves where he is, and whoever wants to go and seek out Moshe, they had to now go out there and really find him by not saying, "Hey, Moshe, come and solve my problems." But if you're a seeker of truth, if you're one that seeks out truth, then you need to actually make that travel. You need to invest your time, your energy, your resources into seeking out truth, because truth is not going to come to you by turning on something, by drinking something, by smoking something, by going on, different forms of entertainment that's now going to take me to some blissful way. Yes, it's nice and for a certain amount of time, but at the end of the day, we all know that there's no long-term fix when we try to go for the shortcuts. When we go out and we seek and we do the inner work, and we go out and there's like this travel, like the Torah says, like Moshe is out there outside of the camp, and he actually has like a veil over him, and and if the people want to see through the veil, and if they want Moshe's wisdom, and if they want basically the wisdom of God and their own soul wisdom that they're searching for, that they're yearning for, then they have to recognize that they have to go out and search for it. They have to yearn for it. And by doing that, we're yearning for that other half that's there, the machatzis shekel ki tisa et rosh, that allows us to raise up our rosh, which is our da'at. That's the fixing of the chet etz da'at. And the haftarah of this week and the special reading of this week, the third week that we read of the 4 special weeks of special readings that we do during this season. The first one is Shkalim, the second one is Zachor, the third one is Parah, and then the fourth one is Achodesh. So this one is Parah, which means to now be cleansed. The cleansing of the red heifer is the cleansing of the golden calf. The golden calf is cleansed by the red heifer. How? So the thing is that there's no law to it, because the golden calf, the red heifer, has no intellectual rationale to it. It's called a chok. It's called the Parah Aduma. It says even Moshe Rabbeinu didn't know the reason for it. Shlomo HaMelech, the wisest of all men, said, Echkema, I said that let me be wise, and it is very far away from me. I don't even understand. I don't understand this level. I understand the level of chok, of the Parah Aduma. But that's precisely where healing happens, where teshuvah happens. When teshuvah happens because I understand it and it makes sense to me, then that's limiting. And that's a sense, that's a level that is I'm complacent with, that I'm okay with because I understand it and I feel comfortable with it. So there's myself that is really feeling comfortable by the sense of knowing. But the not knowing, this sense of like, what's going on? How am I being cleansed over here? And what's happening as I'm going through this process of transformation, the process of teshuvah, where I have that lo yada, which connects us back to Purim. You know, the whole miracle of Purim is connecting us to the not knowing that we actually don't know. That's that half a shekel. That's that half a coin where I am just a half and I don't know. I don't know exactly how things are supposed to turn out and why things have happened this way and that way. And I feel mad and angry and sad if they don't go in a certain way that I think that they should go. And because they don't go in that way, I don't feel good about it. Well, regardless of how I think things are supposed to turn out, the lesson of the Parah Aduma, of the red heifer, is that let me cleanse myself in the not knowing. Let me take that water. Let me cleanse myself. And let me recognize that there's freedom, that there's redemption in not knowing, that there's redemption in the not knowing of my small self. But then within that, there's the knowing of my greater self, my whole self, where God exists, where God resides. And that's the formula we learn, Parshat Ki Tisa, raising up our consciousness. How? By the half a shekel coin. And may we all be raised up to see in a revealed way the goodness that is there, undoubtedly is happening and is permeating throughout the current times that we're in. Things are happening underneath the surface, and the way for us to come head to head and close up to that is not by understanding, because we are not going to understand what's going on, and more bits of information may just give us a certain picture, but it's not going to ultimately help us and give us true a feeling of calm and relaxation and trust and belief. Because the only way to do that is to actually let go of the sense that we need to understand and to just go forward in what is expected of us to do by me doing my job and by me going ahead and being the best half a coin that I could be, thereby becoming this whole coin, and uniting with that and living up to that is what God wants from us and giving us the strength to do based on this week's Torah reading. Wishing you a Shabbat Shalom and many blessings when we see goodness in a revealed way for us and for all of the world. Shabbat Shalom.